Now, you're being modest, T-Bob. I mean, you played on some really good LSU teams.
Yeah.
Your alma mater is excellent at football. Has won national titles under 3 different coaches in this century.
Yeah.
So my question to you is, are they going to win one under the 4th? Because that is the grand existential question right now under Brian Kelly.
Yeah. So at the time of hiring, I was answering this question with an emphatic yes. Through 3 years, though it has been far from a disaster or anything, right? It's been surprisingly successful in some ways, surprisingly disappointing in others. But the overall takeaway would be a kind of regression of that confidence. I don't again, it used to feel like it was a inevitability. It was a matter of when, not if. Now I think if is firmly in play. And when you look at this year's team specifically, I would say gone are the excuses. Now, I'm not holding them to a natty or bust level of expectation because winning a championship is so singular and so tough that, like, you know, you got to have some things go your way to get there. It is what it is. But this is absolutely 1,000% a playoffs or bust year. Like, I'm not saying you're going to get fired or anything, but if you cannot make the playoffs this year with this roster that you have assembled, then I will never again expect you to. Maybe you get lucky, you know, maybe you have a great year, everything times up and you end up making it, but I will never again expect you to. Because right now, Brian Kelly has 3 top 10 recruiting classes in a row stacked together, the number 1 transfer portal class from the December portal season, a second-year returning quarterback in Garrett Nussmeier that projects to be one of the top in the entire country, a second year with Blake Baker trying to remake that LSU defense, bring it back to what they used to be, right? Highest paid DC in the entire country. Like, the timing is such that I don't care what you took over from Coach O, there is no excuse not to be in the playoffs this year. And that's where this gets so fascinating, because I don't think they're winning the first game of the season. But we can maybe get into that a bit more. Ari had him number 1 on his top 10 non-conference games of the 2025 season.
Yeah, it is, because there's tentacles. I like that word. You know what I think is interesting about what T-Bob's saying, though, is that all of it is true. It's all factually accurate. But I also think that the compounding pressure of the job and Brian Kelly failing to make the playoff last year makes you feel that even more, like, naturally. Like, LSU had one of the best offenses in college football history 2 years ago and didn't do anything with it. Last year, they had a down year. There's only so much of that you can take at LSU before that becomes the baseline expectation, regardless of how you want to, like, talk about it. Like, they have the pieces in place and they built it, sure. But now we're in the time arc where that's a necessity, regardless of what you do. And I think that those two things work together.
Well, and last year was also the kind of year that got Ed Orgeron fired. And Ed Orgeron had the national title.
I mean, I would say this, though. I mean, I don't think, again, the thing about the Coach O era, and it's impossible to extricate the fall from COVID. I've talked to some people that were, working there, a high up at that time, and hearing about what it was like in 2020, coming off of the 19 championship, feeling like they were not able to parlay that 19 success in the way that they should have been because of all of a sudden the world shut down, all this other stuff. And then, yes, you had a coach kind of fall victim to success, a bit of a true Hollywood story, but like maybe he could have made it if COVID was there. But the point is it was, and just objectively, I mean, you were sub 500 over a 2-year sample size. Like Brian Kelly's been nothing close to that, right? Year 1, you made the SEC championship. Year 2, the ultimate disappointment is that you had one of the greatest offenses ever. You just happened to pair it with the worst LSU defense we've ever seen. And then year 3 was kind of a mishmash of the two. But I don't believe that Brian Kelly has had a disastrous year at LSU yet. But also, again, like I said, surprisingly positive in some ways, in some moments, and surprisingly disappointing. Look, nothing is bigger right now than win the first game of the season, because that is what has held him back from all of his goals. That is what has changed the math every single season to the point where LSU doesn't end up in the conversations that they want to at the end of the year. And it's kind of shocking, but LSU hasn't won a season opener in half a decade.
Yeah.
I mean, the last time you won it was 2019. 2020, you lose to Mississippi State. 2021, you lose to Mizzou. Or sorry, 2021. Who was it? Because then you lost to Florida State in 22 and 23. USC last year in 24. And now you have Clemson on the road in Death Valley, with Cade Klubnik and Garrett Nussmeier topping a lot of the best quarterbacks in the country charts. You got a new offensive line going against a fearsome Clemson front seven that features multiple All-Americans. You got those young Clemson receivers. Lil old Dabo, right when you think he's back, like Jesse Gemstone, he comes back from the dead, baby, ready to roll.
I got to ask this just as an aside. They lost to
UCLA in 2021.
Yeah, that's UCLA. What it was. Yes, UCLA.
Memory hold that game. I 38-27 UCLA at the Rose Bowl. I don't even remember that happening. It happened. Dorian Thompson-Robinson had a big game. We will be back with more from T-Bob Hebert. But first, I got to tell you about Culver's. We are, of course, presented by Culver's. Culver's bringing us to Green Bay for the draft. For the Great Wisconsin Tailgate. It's going to be tremendous. We're going to be across the street from the frozen tundra of Lambeau Field. We're going to have special guests. It's going to be spectacular. Ari and I are going to be breaking down the picks. We're going to be breaking down where our favorite former college players are going and where we think they're going to wind up. But also, we will be surrounded by the goodness of Culver's, which, of course, is born in Wisconsin, home of the legendary ButterBurger, fresh frozen custard, and Wisconsin cheese curds. I told you the other day, I had a cookies and cream frozen custard a couple weeks ago. It was the first one I'd had in a little while. I forgot how good they are. And I drove past the Culver's in my town yesterday, and the flavor of the day on the marquee is just spectacular because it just sucks me in every time. This was a strawberry one that was very intriguing to me, but unfortunately I didn't have time to stop. So maybe bring that back around Culver's because I want to try that next time.
The frozen tundra of Lambeau Field might not be frozen given the time of year we're going, but I'm going to make it frozen with the custard I'm going to put down out there. I'm super excited about it. And super happy to have Culver's, which has an expansive menu outside of this, the menu items that you listed, and everything on that menu is really good.
Happy to be there. Cannot wait to go to Green Bay and hang out with the folks from Culver's. Ari, let's get back to T-Bob. I want to run this by you. I have an LSU theory that I want to run by you.
Yeah.
And I said this on our quarterback ranking show on Wednesday. We talked about Garrett Nussmeier, and I said, one of the things holding back Garrett Nussmeier is play calling, because LSU abandons the run too quickly in this particular play calling administration. It's a 59% pass team last year. Like part of this is I rewatched the Florida game the other day and was stunned because I didn't remember LSU having successful runs, but they actually did early in the second half. And then they stopped, which allowed Florida to tee off on Nussmeier.
Interesting. I don't remember them running the ball well either. At almost like
they had a couple like Caden Durham runs where you're like, whoa, they're moving it.
No, they it's one of the wildest things I've ever seen. In that last year's offensive line was the best pass blocking O-line I've ever seen. And it wasn't just that they were average at run blocking, they kind of sucked. Like 3rd and 1 was a terror. Like any time when it's 3rd and 1 and you feel like you have the disadvantage, that's a problem. Mm-hmm. And you would see LSU running all kinds of, okay, let's get a guy in like a jet motion and then we'll swing it out to him. All these passing plays that you could say are extensions of the running game, but they still come with risk in that they were very predictable. And like, what if it's a bad throw? What if it's dropped? Like, you have to be able to just line up and run the ball. And again, to your kind of overarching point there, you're doing Garrett Nussmeier a huge disservice by not taking some of the pressure off of his shoulders. I think that's why you saw him go through that kind of a lull in the middle of the season, was everything was just on his decision-making, and he got a couple times, lost some of his confidence, and credit to him, ended up refining it. But yeah, like, I wouldn't mind, like, my great hope for this year's offensive line would be, I'm okay if you're going to be not as good pass blocking, but you have to be better at running the ball. And to your point, for Joe Sloan and company, they have to have more commitment and emphasis on it, which I forgot about this until, again, I read it the other day, but they hired Alex Atkins to be run game.
Yes, they did.
And like, that's a great hire in that regard. Like, that should show you that, okay, they realize that as well, and they should be more committed to that phase of the game.
I was very interested in your Clemson thought. Already predicting potentially that they might not win. If LSU is who we think they might be, should they be underdogs in this game?
Yeah, like, I think there's a world here where LSU is still a playoff team but loses to Clemson because Clemson's just that good. And it's on the road. And it's the first game of the season. I mean, road in college football, first game, this stage, it's going to be incredibly hostile. And we all know the advantage that in this sport specifically, that being in a great home stadium, the advantage that it gives you. Also, look, man, you know, how many years in a row can I pick him to win the opener to lose, right? Like, at a certain point, I have to just accept what things are. And I think all 5 years I picked him to win the game and they've lost. So I'm not freaking doing it again. Okay. I just can't.
I think you're right. I think they can lose that game and still be a playoff team. Just like, you know, Clemson lost the Georgia game last year and was a playoff team. The Florida game for LSU feels much more monumental because it's a conference game. This is, for both teams, it's one of those where if you want to get where you want to go, this is a team you have to beat. Like, Florida feels the same way. And so that's the one I keep looking at. Like, there's going to be a freaking meltdown from somebody after this game.
So I think the difference there would be that I think that Clemson is a very complete team right now. I think that Florida is still a bit, and this is without doing all of my, like, you know, deep offseason dives on the roster and whatnot. So
what you're about to say is completely fair.
But Florida just feels like a team a bit, you know, more on the rise, a bit younger. Now, DJ Lagway, he is so obviously the wild card here, right? Like, he is the piece of the puzzle that changes all the math and that maybe overcomes the more complete roster of LSU or whatever the case may be.
And the environment and everything else. Yeah.
Yeah. Like DJ Lagway is that guy. I mean, you know, I host staffs there. Murray, he knows quarterback very well. He is obsessed with DJ Lagway. And it's easy why 6-1 as a starter. I mean, if he doesn't get hurt, maybe they beat Georgia last year. Like, the guy was unreal. But in terms of overall roster, and the fact that LSU's at home, I do think LSU should win that game. If Florida does, then my God, start the Gator hype, because that would be a springboard for them into oh, wow, look at that. It runs straight into Miami, then to Texas. And what, good God, what a
good God.
This schedule's brutal. but that's the thing. Like, put up LSU schedule, because we can say the same thing. Like, if LSU beats Florida, now you've got
the Southeastern, I think. Yeah, that's the lines.
Southeastern Louisiana. Yeah, then Ole Miss, South Carolina. But LSU schedule is not easy. Like, first of all,
nobody's is.
Ole Miss is going to be pretty good. South Carolina is going to be very good. A&M is the agent of chaos in the entire SEC, and then they got to go to Tuscaloosa.
Florida's schedule is unbelievably harder than this. They're both hard, but Florida's is all in a row.
Yeah. Florida's timing is very rough. 3 of those 4 being on the road as well. And then closing with Ole Miss, Georgia, Ole Miss, Tennessee. I mean, Kentucky's whatever. But even Kentucky's on the road. Yeah, this is pretty brutal for Neighbor. But we said the same thing last year, and they outperformed expectations. I think I always like looking at, because everybody's schedule in the SEC is going to be hard, obviously, right? So it's like varying degrees of hard. And I find that looking at the combined record of the opponents from the last season was a pretty good metric last year of how things ended up shaking out. And if you look at that again, it's like, okay, Tennessee and Mizzou, they have the easiest schedules. I think Ole Miss is down there on the easier side. I think Georgia and Alabama got relatively friendly ones. And then LSU's kind of in the middle there, and Florida's near the top of the
Florida and Oklahoma got the shaft.
Well, the worst part is, and partially this is because they can't play themselves, but it's literally like Mississippi State and Kentucky and Arkansas all have ridiculously hard records where their combined opponent win percentage is like almost 70. It's like they're like 150 basically.